Oh hi, I didn't see you there. My name is Bliss Foster. Where the hell is Hood by Air? Hood by Air went on an indefinite hiatus in 2017 and we lost one of the good ones. Maybe one of the best of this generation. Hood by Air was making incredible statements about gender and racial issues and just art in general. They were one of the best brands that was working in Paris Fashion Week at the time. Shayne Oliver is the GOAT. Since that indefinite hiatus started, we've seen Shayne do some outstanding work in one-off collaborations with different brands. When he was the artistic director in residence at Helmut Lang, he crushed it. He did an incredible job there. We saw him do something outstanding at Colmar. Shayne has even managed to make me care about diesel. That is no small feat. And if somehow you are still on the fence about Hood by Air, which in my opinion means that you probably just haven't looked into it very much, they were putting Telfar Clemens on in 2016, so there's all the proof you should need. And those nuanced statements about gender and race are things that we need now more than we did back in 2015 and 16. We cannot go forward without this man. Well, the good news is that Hood by Air is back, but we get to learn kind of a hard lesson with that extremely good news. Okay, so first things firstly, if you want to join the greatest fashion community on earth, you need to join the Patreon so that you can get on the private Discord server where there's honestly, it's the best fashion community on the internet. You get exclusive episodes, you get extended episodes of the really deep runway analysis videos, and you get to support independent fashion journalism, which is something that everyone should do. Go do it up. I don't know this for certain, but it seems like Shayne Oliver was financially struggling to keep the Hood by Air project afloat while it was still around, which I don't think anyone was expecting at the time because Hood by Air was a fashion media darling. The brand was heralded at the time as a perfect balance between what was at the time a rising streetwear culture and the high fashion community that had already been established. So if you had only looked at the headlines, Shayne seemed to be absolutely killing it. But if you look into some of the interviews that have surfaced since the time of the hiatus, Shayne reveals some things that hint towards the fact that there was a lot of issues with the actual funding, the crucial side of funding that all fashion brands inevitably have to depend on. In an interview with Business of Fashion, he specifies, and he's talking about Hood by Air here, quote, "Don't just throw them a prize and say, oh, we did our duty, and then put them in touch with CEOs that don't even want to have conversations with them." And he goes on to say, quote, "Here, there's such a divide between the corporate side and the creative side of the industry. In Europe, the top editor will be at Craig Green's first show, but we have to wait 4 years to get that kind of reaction. This is why we don't have stars." End quote. Did you know that Hood by Air was back? That information was incredibly easy to miss this year. It seems like things generally have cooled around Shayne Oliver's brand, which I personally think is the cultural zeitgeist f***ing up and missing out on something really good. Why is Hood by Air being ignored? The return of the brand does have some nuance to it. They've restructured the business in a couple of different ways, which I think is probably best explained by a High Snobiety article where they break it down very succinctly. Quote, "The fourfold relaunch has been broken down into Hood by Air, HBA, Museum, and Anonymous Club. Each year, Hood by Air will host a themed event or activation which will be represented and reinterpreted as collectible fashion products. HBA will exist as a direct-to-consumer platform releasing products without the restraints of old world calendars and cadence. Museum refers to the archival pieces from the original Hood by Air brand, which guest designers in residence will reinterpret for a new generation. By leveraging past icons and silhouettes born from young BIPOC creatives, a new future will be informed and developed. Meanwhile, the Anonymous Club will function as an independent platform to support emerging talent." End quote. I like High Snob a lot. Those guys do a good job. So let's talk about what this actual delineation of the business actually means here. We've seen part of this delineation before. Hood by Air in its heyday was divided into two separate brands. There was Hood by Air, which was the runway stuff. That's the stuff with the really crazy pattern cutting. I mean, like the stuff that I have on right now was the mainline Hood by Air brand. And then there was Hood by Air Classic, which is essentially a t-shirt focused streetwear brand. So that split certainly makes sense. It kind of seems like they've just kind of kept that delineation around. The museum section of the business I think is a great idea because Hood by Air put out some really outstanding stuff in its heyday, and I would way rather give $1,200 to Hood by Air to Shayne's actual project than to give it to resellers on Grailed. And they also seem to be incorporating an element of what Hood by Air originally was in the first place, which is enabling young BIPOC designers to actually have an outlet for the really extreme kind of creativity that they want to produce. The Anonymous Club section is really cool because that sort of seems to be an extension of Shayne's extended universe from before. The Ghetto Gothic parties that Shayne used to host back in like 2014, 15, 16. Ghetto Gothic had a storefront in New York called Planet X that was maybe the coolest store in the entirety of New York. It closed in 2018, but I was lucky enough to be able to go there once, like 6 months before it closed. And just getting there is like the wildest thing ever. Rabbit trail time. Okay, I wrote this down and I don't want to have to memorize it, so I'm just going to tell you how you actually got into this store real quick. You walked up to a very normal looking apartment building. You went into the side entrance of said apartment building, got into a very cramped elevator, went up 3 flights, got out of the elevator, got onto a stairwell, went up 2 more flights of stairs, and then got out, and you had to be rung into a doorway, walk down a hallway, and then it's the last door on the right, and they're literally just posted up in a normal apartment in the building. The store featured actually avant-garde, actually independent designers from all over the world. Everything in there was crazy. It was kind of paradise, actually. It was exactly what I want a store to be. So I imagine the spirit of what Planet X was is kind of what they're trying to turn Anonymous Club into. I'm really interested to see how that ends up getting developed. So my only real gripe with the return of Hood by Air is something that I'm not even complaining at Hood by Air about. The main line, according to their description, seems to have been reduced from a runway show and a main line of products that were really interesting, these fantastic cut and sew things that really are pushing boundaries. That's been reduced now to a once a year event. Now, I don't think that Hood by Air needs to be participating in Paris Fashion Week in order to do what we need them to do. It's impossible for us to know exactly what it costs brands to participate in Paris Fashion Week because most of those brands don't have to report those kinds of numbers, but most estimates that I've heard is that for Paris Fashion Week specifically, after everybody gets paid, it costs them $500,000 at least. And again, I don't think that's absolutely necessary in order for Hood by Air to be Hood by Air. But a once a year event seems to be them focusing on the culture, which is good. Events are fine, but that means that we're not going to get more stuff like, I keep bringing this back to my outfit here, but like, honestly, this is like one of my favorite garments that I've ever bought in my entire life. If you haven't seen it, I did a 2-episode breakdown just of the black piece, the outerwear piece here. And I mean, the amount of storytelling that they were able to weave into single garments from that main line was insane. I see very few brands that are able to execute the kind of really deep individual garment to garment storytelling that Hood by Air was able to do in its heyday. And I'm scared that with this new setup, we're going to lose that. So where is my gripe? Who am I angry at? I mean, I'm definitely mad at all of these corporate dudes who weren't giving Shayne a fair shake here. They were meeting with him and clearly being very dismissive. Shayne seems to be pretty upset about that. And something that I like about Shayne a lot is that he's not afraid to go public and say like, hey, I was meeting with these people and they were not actually ever interested in this thing at all. They were meeting with me as some kind of favor to a fashion editor, and I don't appreciate that. That's cool, Shayne, keep that up. But at the same time, I'm also mad at us. I'm mad at myself. I should have supported HBA more when I actually had the chance to do that. I own 2 things from Hood by Air. I own this t-shirt and I own this outerwear piece, both of which I bought secondhand. I remember seeing Hood by Air's mainline pieces at Wish in Atlanta in 2015. And instead of buying one of those things at retail, I just spent money in small bits on secondhand designer pieces on Grailed and eBay. I should have been purposeful and set aside money and saved up so that I could actually get a really, really special thing originally by Hood by Air and been able to support Shayne in the project that even at the time I was very passionate about and loved a lot. So here's the point. When geniuses like the team at Hood by Air are releasing things like this and this and this and this, but then the only thing that actually moves at stores is t-shirts, they're gonna stop making the cool stuff. Eventually they're going to say, this is too expensive, it doesn't sell, these things clearly are things that people are only interested in concept on the internet. They stop making them. Now, to give Hood by Air credit, they do still have some really cool product. I mean, the stuff that's on their website right now is a great example of the design aesthetic of what Hood by Air is. I just am very scared that as time goes on, we're going to continue to reduce down and down and down, and that we're not going to see the really outstanding, really crazy stuff that made them so incredibly special. So, I mean, I guess if there's a lesson to be learned here, If you have some discretionary income right now and you're looking for some cool clothes, go support Shayne. There's stuff up right now. Hood by Air is back. Go support them. Additionally, if you're interested, one of the designers that really made Hood by Air super special, one of the guys on the team, is Andreas Oresti, and he currently has a brand that has its first collection out right now. It's called Lords New York. Lords makes absolutely outstanding stuff, and he's another one that I would say is well worth your money if you are looking to buy some really innovative special clothes. The links to both of those things are down in the description. TLDR, wear weirder clothes, support independent designers. I'll talk to y'all later. Love you a lot.